Hey, what is up guys? Ken Okada here. A few days ago I talked a little bit about how the low back works, and today I wanted to follow that with a few simple things that you can do if you have low back pain. Now, low back pain is extremely common, and in fact, I think it's one of the main causes of lost productivity in our workforce. And the causes of low back pain can be either very simple or kind of complex. In fact, there's a lot of low back experts who say that anybody who's able to actually diagnose the cause of low back pain is probably lying. And even recently, the utility of imaging studies such as X-rays and MRIs have come under a little bit of scrutiny. There have actually been a lot of studies that showed that abnormal results on an MRI of the spine has actually little to do with actual dysfunction. Meaning that just because you find something like a bulging disc on an MRI doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be clinically meaningful. In fact, most of the population actually has some sort of abnormality in their spine. If you take 100 asymptomatic people, meaning that they're not displaying any symptoms at this time, and you do an MRI of their spine, about 80% of them are actually going to have abnormal findings. If you actually have no abnormal findings in your spine, you're actually part of the minority. Now, the good news is that most low back injuries will resolve itself, and today what I wanted to do is give you guys a couple of things that you could do if you're dealing with low back pain right now, and I'm going to break it down into 4 things. So first, how to get that pain under control. Number 2, just suggestions on how to be a little bit more active. Strengthening exercises for the muscles that support the lumbar spine, and motor control. So let's go check these things out. Alright, so the first thing that we want to do is that we want to reduce the level of pain that we're experiencing. When our bodies are under pain, our movement changes, it becomes dysfunctional, and once we get used to that dysfunction, things start to go downhill real fast. So here's a quick trick that a lot of people do to help control their low back pain. What you need is a lacrosse ball or a tennis ball, something that you can sort of sit on. Now what you're going to do, you're going to find a bony spot on the side of your thigh here, and then you're going to find your tailbone, and then what you're going to do is you're going to take that lacrosse ball and put it right in between those 2 points. Now you're going to get on the ground, you're just going to find that spot. Just as a warning, this is not going to be fun. It's going to be a little bit painful, it's going to be a little bit tender, and once you find a good spot, just hang out there. And what I want you to do is take this knee, you're going to rotate down and up this way, and that's just going to slide those muscle fibers over the lacrosse ball, putting it under pressure, and that's going to send a signal for it to relax. A lot of people who have low back pain have a point right there that becomes very tender. Once we attack that point, things start to get a little bit better up here. Second pain fix. You're just going to lie down flat, bend your knees, and then slowly just tilt each knee to the side. Let your back relax and stretch into that movement. Now the third pain control fix, you're just going to come up onto your stomach this way, and you're just going to gently push yourself onto your elbows. Now most people will find some relief with this position, but if you start to feel a little bit more pain, stop. Just skip it. Not everything is going to feel good to everybody. You still have to individualize each program. Alright, so now we're outside. Now the second thing that you should do if you have some sort of low back pain is to simply move more. What they found is that non-specific activity could actually be very, very beneficial for people who have low back pain. So just getting outside, moving your body a little bit more, just exercising. It doesn't even have to be targeted towards the low back. Those types of things tend to help people who have low back pain. The funny thing and the cool thing about
the human body is that once you get it moving, it tends to remember how to do things. Remember that our bodies crave movement, and when we deprive it of movement, things will start to go wrong. Things start to become dysfunctional, everything starts to become really weak. Movement is like an essential nutrient of the body. Feed it movement and everything tends to get better.
Now the third thing that we want to do is we want to strengthen the muscles that are supporting the low back and the muscles of the hip. Now what happens is that when some of the muscles around here start to get weak, other muscles have to compensate and basically take over the work of those other muscles. And what usually ends up happening is that these muscles around our abs start to get weak, and then these muscles up and down the sides of our spine, the paraspinals, start to get real tight, locked down, and they're under a lot of work. Another thing that usually happens is that when our hips get weak, our low back starts to compensate. The muscles of the hips not only help us move, but they also support the low back. So let's look through some of these exercises. Now the very last thing that we want to do is we want to put all of that stuff together. So we want to train our motor control. You see, it's not enough to just strengthen the muscles. We have to train our bodies to know when to engage certain muscles during specific actions. When we become sedentary, our bodies start to become dysfunctional. Our movements become dysfunctional. Our bodies crave movement, right? And when we don't give it that, our bodies tend to forget how to move properly. But motor control, even though the concepts could become complicated, in its essence, the actual training doesn't have to be as complex. It could be very simple. Now the first drill here is a simple sit to stand. A lot of people who have back pain find that even just standing up from a chair could be bothersome. So what you're going to do is you're going to engage the muscles that you were strengthening earlier. You're going to engage here, and you're just going to stand up, engage the muscles of the hip, have the power originate from your legs, support here, stand up, okay? And just do that a couple times. Just consciously think about controlling your trunk and stabilizing. Next thing you're gonna do, you're gonna practice picking things up. Now the sequence here is that when you're coming down to pick up an object, you're gonna come down, you're going to stabilize and brace through your core here, and you're going to use your legs instead of trying to heave it up with your back. So you're going to come down here, stabilize, come up, come back down, do a couple reps of those, okay? And really learn to use all of those muscles to really help stabilize this section here. Now this last one here is a little bit more advanced. It's essentially a single-legged Romanian deadlift, and the reason why it's become so complex is that you're balancing on one foot and you're trying to focus on stabilizing, doing all of those actions. Don't do this until you're a bit better at doing the simpler tasks, but basically you're just going to be on one foot here, you're going to be hinging at the hip. You're going to be making sure that you're not twisting in any direction here. Just going to come down and then come back up. Really engaging that core. Just an extra side note on point number 2. One of the easiest ways to increase your activity is to sit less. Sitting is actually really bad for your back. If you aim to walk a little bit more throughout your day, that could actually help a lot. So that's it today, guys. Hope you guys learned something. Hope this was helpful. As always, if something starts to get worse because of an exercise or something, stop, reevaluate, figure out what's going on, and then proceed. These exercises aren't necessarily going to help everybody. Programs shouldn't be a one-size-fits-all deal. Individuals still have individual needs. So that's a wrap. Please share this video with somebody who might find it useful. Like this video, subscribe if you already haven't, and I'll see you in the next one.